I think everyone acknowledges that Game 4 of the 2015 NBA Finals was going to be a pivotal turning point in this series for both teams potentially. You had the Cavaliers looking to go up 3-1, undermanned, a bit depleted in the lineup, but still playing hard and really looking to pounce on the momentum they had accumulated over the past 2 games, and the fact that in a lot of ways they had actually dominated this series, especially in terms of style of play. And then you've got the Golden State Warriors that haven't played up to the level of what the Golden State Warriors can be, especially based off of their 67-win regular season, looking a potential 3-1 deficit square in the face, whereas if they found a way to win Game 4, the series is tied up at 2, and then you've got 2 of the last 3 at home at Oracle Arena. So this was going to be a pivotal game. And I think in a lot of ways it proved to be that pivotal game in this series, a real tipping point. The Golden State Warriors were able to change up some things. They were able, most importantly of all, to control and dictate the tempo of this series, in this game at least I should say. And they found a way to not only win, but win in somewhat dominant fashion, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers 103-82 and tying this series up at 2. And now the Warriors potentially have 2 games at home out of the next 3 and just need to win 2 games to win their first NBA championship since 1975. So looking at this game, what went right for the Warriors and what went wrong for the Cavaliers? Let's start off first with the Warriors and what went right for them. I applaud Steve Kerr for the adjustments that he made in his lineup in game number 4. You can see in these type of situations a lot of times where the truth is staring you square in the face, but due to patterns, due to stubbornness, some coaches would be unwilling to change at this point. They wouldn't have the flexibility or the desire to sit there and say, hey, we need to shake some stuff up. We need to do something differently. It's a big risk to take when you're down 2-1 in a series in the NBA Finals. But Steve Kerr did it. It's not so much that he put Andre Iguodala in the starting lineup, because let's face it, Iguodala had been playing a lot through the series already. It wasn't just that. It was that he took a mostly ineffective in the series Andrew Bogut off the floor, found some more playing time for both Shaun Livingston and David Lee, combined with the dynamics of putting Green at the 5 and starting Iguodala at the 3, Barnes at the 4. It was a whole combination. What it really allowed them to do was to finally dictate the tempo for the first time in this series, both on their own offensive end and then on the defensive end as well. What they really did was a phenomenal job of basically saying, LeBron's not going to dictate this tempo. He's not going to slow this game down. We're going to trap him. We're going to double team him. We're going to get the ball out of his hands. And we're going to force others to beat us, because at the end of the day, we don't think others can beat us. And they can't. I mean, you look at the fact that Mozgov put up, like 28 points? And they got blown out. I mean, the Warriors were able to finally get LeBron and the Cavaliers out of their style of play, out of their Eastern Conference style. They dictated the tempo, the Warriors finally did, and it paid some big dividends for them. Also, you look at Andre Iguodala, you could argue that he outplayed LeBron James in game number 4. He was phenomenal on both ends of the floor. You have Harrison Barnes and Draymond Green, who were pretty bad for pretty much all of this series, frankly. They managed to combine for 31 points. I mean, they stepped up and contributed in the way that the Warriors needed them to contribute, especially when you look and say Klay Thompson didn't have a phenomenal game. And honestly, Steph Curry, while he played a little bit better in game 4, he wasn't exactly lights out. But they had enough balance in enough other places. A great game from Iguodala, better performances from Barnes and Green. They got a little bit out of Shaun Livingston for sure. He's had some impact in this series when he's gotten the opportunity. David Lee came in and gave him some nice minutes. You're also looking at a Warriors team, for a team that's so reliant upon the three-point shot. They shot 40% from 3. And that's a much better percentage than they had been shooting in this series, and that will certainly help. But most especially of all, when you talk about controlling and dictating tempo, I thought the Warriors played with a much more aggressive style on both ends of the floor, and that aggressiveness I thought they had on the defensive end translated to the offensive end with 27 free throw attempts. You're talking about a team that had LeBron James attempt as many free throws as all of the Golden State Warriors in game number 3. Now they come out and they get to the free throw line 27 times. And it'll be interesting to see the rest of the series, maybe as Steph Curry is struggling still a little bit with his outside jumper. Maybe he becomes a little bit more of a facilitator and a penetrator to be able to create opportunities for others, because that is something he can do, and it is there in this series, and you saw elements of that in game number 4. So those are all reasons why the Warriors ultimately won this game, evened up this series, and really, frankly, took back home court advantage. And now they have all the momentum. And now the pressure, frankly, is on the Cleveland Cavaliers. You look at why the Cavaliers lost. First thing is they allowed the Warriors to dictate the tempo in large part because they didn't stick with LeBron in the post. They were posting up Mozgov a lot. LeBron was kind of at moments settling outside. The Warriors did a good job of keeping him out of the post and allowing him to slow down the game and control the game that way. LeBron needs to be in the post consistently to facilitate the offense the way the Cavaliers need him to facilitate the offense in order for them to have a shot of still coming back and winning this series. And for any of you that think my analysis is bad on this, you can look at some of the stuff I said after game number 3, and you see how it bared out in game number 4, so go fuck yourself. But it's not just about the lack of ability to control the tempo and the fact that LeBron James, again, he wasn't very efficient on the offensive end, but furthermore was he not only not efficient, he wasn't able to control and dictate the game and create opportunities for others, even when he's not shooting that well like he had in the first 3 games of the series. You look at the fact that you have Iman Shumpert, Matthew Dellavedova, J.R. Smith, 3 guys that played really well as the Eastern Conference playoffs went along, and 3 guys that are critical to the success of this team, shot a combined 7 of 35 from the field. Tired or not, worn out or not, that is 20% from the field between 3 key perimeter contributors. 7 of 35. I don't give a damn who you are. You're not winning games if you're the Cavaliers and you're getting those guys to put up 7 for 35 from the field. That's horrible. The team as a whole shot 33% from the field. And that's even with Mozgov going off for 28. I mean, you got to look at it. This is where, in some ways, the offensive inefficiency of LeBron in terms of his shooting can catch up with the team a little bit because he's not shooting well. And then these other guys around him are playing like a bunch of scrubs on the offensive end. You're shooting 33% from the field. You're going to really struggle to win games in the NBA, whether it's regular season or especially in the NBA Finals. And the Cavaliers did not have enough of a rebounding edge, especially on the offensive glass, in order to compensate for that field goal deficiency, if you will. And they didn't have enough free throw attempts to compensate for it either. And when you look at the fact that this team shot under 15% from outside of the painted area, under 15%, I think it was like 13 or 14%, was it? You're not winning any games in the NBA doing that crap. 4 of 27 from 3. The Cavaliers just couldn't hit a bucket. They just couldn't buy shots. And we could talk about that being fatigue and what have you, but at the end of the day, sometimes guys just got to hit shots. They are NBA players. And the Cavaliers, no matter what you want to say, they got to the finals for a reason. They earned that spot. I mean, they got there. So at some point in time, you would actually expect them to play at a level like they actually belong. And guys like Shumpert and Dellavedova and J.R. Smith, no matter what you want to say about Tired or anything else, 7 of 35 combined from the field. That's just unacceptable. LeBron could shoot 60% from the field, and the Cavaliers still don't win that game. It doesn't freaking matter. And in the whole grand scheme of things, because of injuries throughout the year to guys like Anderson Varejao and Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, there's just not a lot there on the bench. For the people that are sitting there saying Blatt has to shake up the lineup and try some different things, like, who does he have to really turn to? You're going to go to Mike Miller and Shawn Marion. These are guys that he didn't really play much in the regular season. Now he's going to go to them with the season potentially on the line in game number 5 or even here in game number 4. I'm just saying. Here's what we learned, I think, in game number 4, is that Steve Kerr was willing to make the changes necessary at the time they were necessary. Not every coach will do that. And I applaud Steve Kerr for having the courage, and his coaching staff, again, for having the courage to do the right thing. And it's a big contributing factor as to why they won Game 4. They understood the approach they had taken so far in the series, frankly, hadn't worked. And if you don't affect some positive change, you're not going to win the series. You're there ultimately to win the championship. So you have to do what you have to do. In terms of David Blatt, he's a guy I look at sometimes and I say, he's an NBA head coach. I don't think he's as bad. Sometimes he kind of comes across as an idiot. I'm just being honest here. But for those that are going to sit there and say Blatt needs to do this, Blatt needs to do that, again, as I emphasized a moment ago, who does he have to really go to on the bench? What, Shawn Marion? Mike Miller? A rookie like Joe Harris? Well, fucking Brandon Haywood? I mean, we have to think about this for a second. Who do the Cavaliers really have on the roster at this point in time? How much can David Blatt really do? it's kind of unfortunate for the Cavaliers, but they're in a situation where they just have to play better with what they have, and they just have to make it work because there aren't a whole lot of other options out there. There aren't a whole lot of variety of choices in ways in which they can go. You might want to throw Miller out there who can't shoot anymore, apparently. Maybe he have one dive on the floor, and maybe Shawn Marion, you hope, can hit a couple of shots, but that's kind of grasping for straws for a guy in his mid to late 30s. The Cavaliers have just got to play better. They are what they are. They have what they have. And again, it doesn't matter who else you throw out there. These are NBA players, and Iman Shumpert, Matthew Dellavedova, and J.R. Smith going a combined 7 for 35 from the field is unacceptable and completely ridiculous, especially when you have LeBron having to do what he has to do, and he's starting to get worn down himself because of the number of minutes he's played and how much of a burden he's had to take on both ends of the floor. This game to me is probably the tipping point of this series. It's not over yet. I'm not just going to write the Cavaliers off. I was trying to do that early in the series, and I learned my lesson. You look at the Cavs, you can sit there in some ways and say, it's only going to go down here from here. This is a team that's wearing down. This is a team that's tired. This is a team that's probably frustrated with their situation, with their head coach. As you've heard some reports talk about, they're mad about how he's managing the lineup. Again, I would say to the Cavs players, what more could he really freaking do at this point, frankly? When you look at it, though, it's in a lot of ways the Cavaliers need too much out of too few. But those few guys that they do have, if they can step up and they can play better, and most certainly out of those three guys that I named, Shumpert, Delly, and Smith, give you better than 7 of 35 from the field, and or you have LeBron James shoot around 50% for a game, the Cavaliers have a chance. They could still win this series. They have already won a game in Golden State. In fact, they were competitive in both games at Golden State. And in fact, you look at it, Game 4 was the only real kind of wipeout. The Cavaliers have won in Golden State before, and they can do it again. It's not going to be easy. It's not a guarantee. I'm just saying it's not a certainty at this point that the Warriors win this championship. If the Warriors win Game 5, then yes, it's a certainty that they win the championship, and it probably happens in Game number 6. Ultimately, though, again, as I've talked about throughout this series, in each recap of each game, it's about the team who controls the tempo that wins the game. The first 3 games of the series, the Cavaliers clearly controlled the tempo, and in a lot of ways should have even been up 3-0 instead of just being up 2-1. Game 4, the Warriors made the necessary changes. They finally dictated terms. They controlled the tempo, and they won in dominant fashion with an average performance out of Klay Thompson and a little bit better than average performance out of Steph Curry. That's what's scary for the Cavs. Yeah, they could play quite a bit better, but it still might not be enough, because what happens if the Warriors play any better than they did in Game 4? This series could get really ugly in a hurry. Ultimately, that's the thing. The Warriors need to do more of what they did in Game 4, and the Cavaliers need to try and go back to do more of what they did in the first 3 games. And guys have got to start hitting shots, period. And yeah, even LeBron. And like I said, I'm not going to harp on him too bad for his poor shooting percentage in the series, because it does open up other options and opportunities for others. And furthermore, what it also does do is signify to me that LeBron James was willing to take on that burden, shoulder that load, which I respect tremendously. It's the most aggressive I think I frankly have ever seen him in an NBA Finals or any playoff situation. But at some point in time, he could shoot a little bit better too. And, we could sit there and excuse a 7 for 22, but, what if he went 12 for 22? He could hit some damn shots too. He's been great in a lot of ways in his finals, and I don't know how much more he can really do, and maybe that wear and tear and that load that he's had to shoulder is going to catch up with him, but they need guys to shoot better. And I think the Cavaliers in Game 5 have to stay away from the trap of getting Thompson and Mozgov so involved in the offense, especially Mozgov, because on the one hand, Mozgov had a great game. Thompson had a pretty good game as well, even on the offensive end. But when you look at the results, you say the result wasn't very good. The Warriors were able to dictate what the Cavaliers were doing on offense. And at this point in time, if I'm the Warriors, I'll live all day with Mozgov scoring 25 or 30, because to me, it could do so many things for the Warriors in terms of controlling other guys, getting the ball out of LeBron's hands, most importantly. And then when the Warriors on the offensive end, they have all types of mismatches with their smaller lineup, because Mozgov's going to have to guard somebody like a Draymond Green or a Harrison Barnes on the screen roll, and that's a formula for disaster. It'd be great if the Cavaliers could make some adjustments. honestly, at this point in time, the only two adjustments I think they can make is one, they got to be able to shoot better, and two, they got to try and control the tempo of the series again. Because if they don't, it's going to get ugly for them in a big hurry.